City of Stevens Point Personnel Committee meeting, recorded November 12, 2024.
Call the meeting of the City of Stevens Point Personnel Committee to order at 6:20 p.m. I understand the mayor is sitting in for Sandy tonight.
Yeah, Sandy is out for the next couple of days.
So
everything's fine, though. I'm just going to be acting HR manager. Kneebone.
Here.
Broderick.
Here.
Lang.
Here.
Guthrie and Steinmetz are excused, but you do have a quorum. You're good to go.
All right. Second item on the agenda is setting the Alderperson salary terms beginning in 2025 and 2026. Let's see. Mayor, did you want to say anything first from the HR perspective?
Yes. So before you is the same recommendation from my office that you reviewed in October. When we talked about it, you wanted to see some comparables. Those comparables are included in page 4. As you can see, they're kind of all over the board. So the recommendation from my office stands. That would be for those alders elected in 2025 for their 2-year term, it would be $5,460 annually. And for those alderpersons elected in 2026 for their 2-year term, it would be $5,620, which is about a 3% increase for each of those.
Any questions before we start? For the sake of Robert's rules, we'll have a motion first, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
I will move to approve 3%
Okay.
as presented.
I will second that.
Okay. Motion to approve by Broderick and
Gotcha.
Lang second. Okay, so, well, this has come up once before for us, and I voted no. Although it wouldn't be a bad thing to have a little extra money, I personally feel that if we can't afford to give the departments money, then I don't need to be giving myself a little raise. But that's just my opinion. So,
Alderperson, I need to clarify that. Nobody here is giving themselves a raise.
well, that's true, assuming
They have to be
elections-
elected
Right.
in next April through the popular vote, and that is exactly why we're doing it now rather than later. We're doing it before the election cycle even starts, so there is no chance of any kind of perceived impropriety. Nobody's giving themselves a raise. You still have to win the election, even if you choose to approve this.
Yeah, that's true. Very good point. Thank you. That's true. It's hard to think of it in terms of that in between now and then. Anyway, comments?
So I do think it makes sense to support this. I think you've mentioned in previous meetings it can be a little uncomfortable for us to talk about this as current members. We are looking ahead to the future. We have made a commitment generally in the budget to supporting cost of living allowance increases where we can. There are certainly members of this body, now in the past and in the future that do rely on the alderperson salary. And so I think that this does make sense. I will be supporting today.
Alder Lang.
I'll just say thanks to the hard work that's gone into this, to our city employees, and the time that's gone into this. And there's a lot of thought and consideration behind this. And yeah, it's not a whole lot, and that's kind of part of what being an alder is there's some public service aspect to this sort of thing. So, like, I can totally hear you on the whole, ratcheting up this cost of being an alder, and well, I'd say I think this is a pretty reasonable increase, and there are things that go into being an alder, like a lot of cups of coffee, meetings that way. So it does help when it comes to doing the service of being an alderperson. So I'm in support of this. I support this 3% increase. I find that very reasonable, and as stated, it's this is not something that gives us a raise. We would have to be reelected for that to affect us.
And looking at some of these, salaries around the state, we're pretty much right in the middle. So it seems like the amounts are reasonable amounts compared to other places this size. So open it up to comments from the floor. Okay, seeing none, I guess we'll bring it back to a vote. The motion is to approve. Those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. No. And the motion carries. Okay, great. Item number 3, updates to Administrative Policy 5.01, adoptions and amendments. Mayor.
Yep. Our HR manager, Frosch, has been going through the policies, and we've been meeting. It seems like every week we have something that we need to review at staff in regards to admin policies. This is just, we're removing it because it's redundant and we no longer need it because it determined, it's in section 1.01 right at the very beginning on how we introduce, adopt, or amend. So we don't need it in section 5.01, so we're just looking to strike it.
I will say this, I read that, all of those, and there is a lot of redundancies, and
He's working on it.
HR Manager Frosch is my hero. Well, I'll take are there questions, clarifying questions first before we do a motion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to
Okay, approved by Lang.
I'll second.
And second by Broderick. Okay. Any comments from folks in the audience? Comments from the committee?
I would just like to echo, like you're saying, like Sandy's doing a fantastic job. We had a sit down and we talked about some of our HR policies, and she was able to open my eyes to how much updates there are there, and so thank you. Like, this is a step in the right direction. Yeah, there are probably going to be a few more of these.
I was going to say, I think we'll be seeing a few more coming forward in the future, and it's work that needs to be done. Well, no more questions. We'll entertain. We have a motion, and those in favor would vote aye. Aye. Opposed would vote no. Seeing none, motion is approved. Item number 4, City Clerk Yenter request to reclassify Administrative Assistant Clerk to Deputy City Clerk. We'll have the City Clerk come up and...
Carrie Yenter, City Clerk. This position, administrative assistant position in the clerk's office, was previously a deputy city clerk. That position was held by an employee for 46 years. Since changing it to an administrative assistant, we've seen many turnovers in the office. I kind of lost track, but in the last 13 years, I bet you we went through 10 to 12 employees. Last 3 years alone, 3 employees. So I'm asking for your support to switch it back from administrative assistant clerk's office back to the deputy city clerk.
Great, thank you. Mayor, did you have any comments from the HR perspective?
From the mayor's perspective, I can absolutely guarantee you that I only took one of those employees. From an HR perspective, the job description is really modified from that of the assistant clerk. The duties are in line, and I know that HR Manager Frosch went through and did some research on deputy city clerk. There is a statutory definition and a personnel definition. This is the personnel definition. Statutorily, the clerk has the ability to appoint a deputy clerk, totally different duties. That just means if Carrie's out for some reason, that person could take over. The comptroller treasurer has exactly the same statutory authority. That is not what this is. This is a personnel description, changing it for the deputy city clerk.
Any clarifying questions from the committee before we have a motion? Okay. In that case, I will move to approve the change from administrative assistant clerk to deputy city clerk.
A second.
Okay,
Second by Broderick.
got it.
Comments from the committee first.
I'd like to offer the fact that like continuity, institutional memory, that has a cost when you lose that. And when we're able to, say, build within our organization that infrastructure of, all right, this is better, I feel like we are going to be able to have some continuity. We see that when this was there in the past, 46 years. Wow. Like that's institutional memory. Like what, and so if we can kind of recapture that by changing this job description, I feel like that would be a step in the right direction as well.
Alder Broderick, any comments or questions?
Mostly just echoing what Alderperson Lang said. I mean, we can see here in this request form, I mean, when you have folks leaving this role because they're coming in and then getting kind of subjected to these duties that are at a much different level than what the job description initially entailed, and that causes them to, leave the role. That shows us that there's a problem, and this is mostly just bringing that job description in line with what the job actually entails. That seems very common sense to me. I'm happy to support this today.
Yeah, I had that same thought. It seems like the financial impact on the clerk's budget is going to be a lot less than constantly having to train somebody new, and all the costs that go along with posting the job and interviewing people and then bringing someone in and doing the background to all of that. So I'm also in favor. Comments from the audience? Okay, seeing none, any final comments from the committee? Okay, we'll take a vote. Those in favor of the motion would vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed would vote no. Seeing no votes, the motion is carried. Item number 5, updates to Administrative Policy 1.08, hours of work, and Policy 2.08, compensatory time and overtime pay. And again, kind of cleaning up language and removing redundancies.
Yeah, there are some changes, specifically in 1.08. But you'll notice that a lot of the changes in these two are clearing things up, removing some redundancies. We had departments that were outlined. We called things a normal workday. How many in here have a normal workday? So we changed it to scheduled work shift, things like that. There was some employees may receive a 15-minute paid rest. We changed it to are permitted, little things like that. The ones that I think are really significant is the shift differential pay. We have, predominantly in the streets department, a night shift. And we have that specifically to try and get things done. It's easier to, let's say, put up Christmas lights or sweep the streets or plow the streets when there's less traffic in the area. So we typically have a night shift. In the past, we've called for volunteers. That is becoming problematic. It's becoming voluntolds, and everybody's kind of required now to do this. It's my understanding, working with the department heads and some of the employees, that offering this shift differential is enough incentive to get people to work that shift, so we can get some more things done. This does affect a few people in other departments, but predominantly it's going to be covered through the streets department. The call-in pay, I think that was basically the same. Yeah, we cleaned up some language too, because with summer hours, some of the departments work 4/10s. So we changed it where it says 8-hour workday. We changed it to 8 or 10 scheduled. It's not a you don't get to work 8 hours, and if you stay an extra 2 hours, it has to be scheduled, and all that stuff has to go through your department. But those are the primary changes in a nutshell.
All right. Any clarifying questions from the committee? Okay, would entertain a motion.
I'd move approval.
Okay, good. Motion and a second.
So motion by Lang.
By Alder Lang and second by Alder Broderick. Questions or comments?
I have one question, which is a little bit in the weeds. Firstly, I'll say this is exactly like the kind of work I think that we alluded to earlier. I mean, there's just a lot of rewriting here that enhances clarity, removes redundancy. It is hard work, but it needs to be done, and that is great to see. I do have a question about item number 5 here in this policy for double time pay. Apologies for not catching this earlier while Manager Frosch is out. But I see that the bar for when double time pay starts is 18 hours, and I guess I'm curious if there's a reason why 18 was chosen versus like 16 that would represent like a double standard 8-hour work shift, or like how that number was picked. That seems like a really
We
long
talked
time
about this
over.
about 6 times at staff, and there was time and a half, but the double time came in. Where's Director Badoon? Director Badoon, can you come in here, or Chris? Do you remember why we chose 18?
I was not involved with that.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but since you were standing there. There was a logical reason. I don't remember what it is. Like I said, we talked about this at probably a half dozen or more staff meetings. The question from Alder Broderick was at the double time, why did we choose 18 hours instead of 16?
And all I can do is nod. Because quite honestly, I don't know, it's otherwise existed. I was even asking Director Lemke on here exactly where that was, but that's, I think, I know what they've otherwise had adopted. I'd already pre-existed somewhere within the city,
Okay.
but I don't know exactly what it is. So it's kind of just let's
And
just make
is
it
it 18 in
universal.
the utilities?
I thought he was following me. I apologize.
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are.
It's common
It's common.
between, yeah.
Okay, so that's the only reason we did it is because it was standard practice.
Right, because it already existed.
All right.
Best practice.
May
works
not
for
be
me.
may not be the best answer, but it's the answer you're getting. Best
you for that,
practice,
Director.
common practice, really, not necessarily even best. It's in other places. So. Okay. Anything else? Oh, sorry.
Alder Lang, any questions or comments?
Sure. I worked second and third shift, and yeah, a shift premium is just standard practice. Even though it's more fun on the night shift, to get people to do it, you got to kind of pay them. So I see a lot of reasons to be doing this as well.
I worked a night shift when I was in the Air Force, and the only perk was watching the jets take off and the color of the afterburner when it would kick in. We got the same amount of money whether we worked, no matter how many hours. Anything else here before comments from the audience? Okay. Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor would vote with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed would be no. Hearing none. Motion is approved, and we are adjourned at 6:38.
Is it easy?